doing today? My name's Eric. I really appreciate you stopping by to check out my video today. On this episode of Smoking, I'm going to show you how to make homemade smoked beef jerky. Now I got motivated to try this because a coworker of mine, Chad, started making some jerky homemade with his dehydrator at home, and he'd bring some into work to share with us, and it was really good. So I thought I'm going to try this myself. Only problem is I don't have a dehydrator, but hey, I can use my smoker, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. First thing you need to do is to get a nice lean piece of meat. I got a 5-pound Eye of the Round roast here. You can use a bottom roast, you can use London broil. Whatever you use, just make sure it's nice and lean because you don't want a lot of fat. We're going to be spicing it up with some basic ingredients. I got some soy sauce, some Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of honey to give it a little bit of sweetness, some garlic powder, onion powder, some ground black pepper, and then as an option, at least for me, I'd rather be safe than sorry, I'm going to be using some curing salt, specifically Prague powder number 1. This is just going to make sure all the harmful bacteria is going to be killed, since we're not really going to be cooking this jerky, we're just going to be drying it out. So that is an option, but for me, you know what, it costs very little. And just to make sure that you're not going to get sick, to me it's worthwhile to use it. We're just going to use 1 teaspoon of this for this 5-pound piece of meat. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to do this step by step. Stick around, let's get cooking. So the first thing you want to do is take the meat out of the package, and you want to slice off any big visible pieces of fat. Fat is not good for jerky. That's why you want a very lean piece of meat. This particular Eye of the Round roast that I had a big piece of fat, so I sliced that off. Now don't be concerned if there's little tiny pieces of fat, that's okay. And once we slice this into smaller pieces for the jerky, you can always trim that off. So the first thing we want to do after we trim all the fat off is we want to get this nice and cold so it's easier for us to slice very thin slices for the jerky. The best way to do that is to just take a regular Ziploc freezer bag, or you can use plastic wrap, and we're going to stick it in there, and we're going to stick it in the freezer for about 45 minutes to an hour. What this is going to do now, we don't want to get it like completely rock hard frozen like a brick. We just want to get it nice and hard, so with a sharp knife we can slice nice thin slices. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the freezer, and we'll be back in a second, and I'll show you how to mix up the marinade. Alright, so let's get ready to mix this marinade. Now I'll leave all the specific measurements down in the video description. The first thing we're going to use is 1 cup of soy sauce. Now I'm using the low sodium soy sauce just because, you know what, I don't want it too salty, but that's up to you. 1 cup of Worcestershire sauce. Okay. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of regular fresh ground black pepper, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder. Now I have 2 tablespoons of honey. Now if you don't have honey, you can also substitute a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. We just want to add a little sweetness to this. With all this salty flavors, we want to add a little bit of sweetness, but not too much. So 2 tablespoons of honey. And then last but not least, like I said, it's completely optional, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I have 1 teaspoon of the Prague powder number 1, otherwise known as curing salt. Now, if you weren't going to be smoking this, you could certainly make this recipe if you have a dehydrator. But if you're not going to be using a smoker like I am, then I would add some liquid smoke. Probably a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of liquid smoke, just to give it a little bit of that smoky flavor. So now all we're gonna do is just whisk this up until everything is diluted and kind of mixed in as best as possible. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to mix this. We'll throw it in the fridge for another 20 minutes or so to keep it nice and cool while we wait for that eye of the round roast to get nice and cold so we can slice it. So we'll be back in a little bit. I'll show you the next step. All right, it's been around 45 minutes. It's not completely frozen. It's nice and hard, so I probably could have left it in there for easily another half hour, 45 minutes. But I just want to get this in the marinade and start going, so I'm going to attempt it right now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to slice it along against the grain as thin as possible. Now there's a couple options here. If you slice it against the grain, you're going to get more of a soft jerky that's less chewy. You can also slice it this way with the grain, and the grain you can see is running this way, which is going to give you a more chewy, tough jerky. I've seen people do it both ways, but for me, this time I'm going to go ahead and go against the grain because that's just what I've been taught. So anyway, we're just going to go as thin as possible, just like this. And bear in mind, if it's not as thin as you think it should be, as we go ahead and smoke this and dehydrate it, it's definitely going to shrink. The moisture is going to be coming out of this stuff. So don't be too concerned if you get a piece that you think's a little too big. So just like this, we're going to slice it into little thin pieces. Just like so. Now some of these bigger pieces, you know, if you want to cut them in half like this and get a couple smaller pieces of jerky. I'm probably going to do cut some in half and leave some whole too, you know, just to have a variation. Some thick pieces and some smaller pieces. So there you go, pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and continue to slice this as thin as possible. Easier said than done. And we'll be back when I'm done and I'll show you what we have left. Alright, so here we are. You know what, I just had a thought come to me as I was slicing these. Since I have such a nice big 5-pound piece, why don't I try slicing it both ways and then I could do a little taste comparison at the end. So these, I went ahead and sliced against the grain. And then I think the rest of this, I'm just going to slice with the grain. And I'll make some nice little strips here. These are going to be much thicker, of course. But I think I might hang these from my grates in the smoker, since they're a little bit thicker. And I think that'll help them dry out a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to do. And then hopefully we'll see at the end which way is the preferred method. To slice against the grain, which they say is going to give us a less chewy soft jerky, or with the grain, which is going to give us more of a chewy tough jerky. I'm not sure which one I'm going to like better, but we're going to try both methods here. So let me get done slicing these. We'll be back in a minute. Alright, so here we are. I put the pieces I'm going to hang on the bottom of the bag, and then I put the other pieces on top so I'll be able to figure out how to separate them. Now we're going to let this marinate in a bag. You can also use some kind of container if you'd like. I just like the bag because you kind of move it around and just put it in some kind of container just in case there's any leaks. We don't want to deal with leaking marinade all over our refrigerator. So I've had this sitting in the fridge while we got this all ready to go. I'm just going to give it one final stir. Everything looks pretty well dissolved. And then we're just going to pour this marinade over the meat in the bag there. Perfect. Squeeze all that air out as best we can. Seal it up good. And then before you put it in the fridge, give it a good mixing. Move it around with your fingers. Make sure that the marinade gets on all those pieces. Even the ones on the inside, the ones on the top. We definitely want to get that cure worked in too. So right now it's around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to be smoking this tomorrow. Now you don't have to soak it overnight like I'm going to be doing. I'm actually going to be doing more than overnight. You know, overnight's typically 8 to 12 hours. I'm probably going to be doing closer 18 to 24. The only reason I'm picking the longer time duration is because of the cure. I want to allow the cure enough time to penetrate the meat and to cure the meat. These slices are relatively thin, so I don't need, you know, normally if I did something bigger, you know, like a ham or something, it could take several weeks in a cure. But these are very small pieces of beef, so this should be fine. Now what I'm going to do is every couple hours or every time I go to the fridge to get a drink or something, I'm just going to pull this out to give it a little massage like this, move it around, shake it around, maybe switch it a little bit and put it back in there. So I'm going to do that probably 6 or 7 times today, and then tomorrow when I wake up I'll do it a few times before we dry these pieces off and get them in the smoker. So our job is done for today. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my day. I'll meet you guys tomorrow when we pull these out and get them on the smoking rack. See you then. Welcome back everyone. Here we are the next day. This has been marinating for 23 hours. I was going to let it go a full 24, but I got to pick up my son from school in a couple hours. So ideally 24 hours is what I'd say with that cure. But you know what, 23 hours I think is going to be fine. I have been massaging this like I showed you yesterday. I did it a couple times last night and a couple times this morning as well. First things first, put some kind of paper towel, something down, because this is going to get messy. I got some butcher paper I just taped onto the countertop here. The first thing we want to do is get this out of the marinade and dry it off as much as possible. And then we're going to place it on the jerky racks. I got 2 jerky racks. And then this center rack here is where I'm going to take these skewers, those thicker pieces. I'm going to thread them on here, and I'm going to just let them hang down on the racks that I slide into my smoker. So this is a little time consuming, but like everything else that's worthwhile in life, requires a little bit of time. So I just got a pan here with some paper towels, and I'm just going to take the pieces of jerky, and we're just going to lay them out here. Our purpose here, like I said, is just to dry them off as much as possible before we put them on the racks. They're going to absorb that smoke flavoring much better if they're dry. And of course, that's also going to help us dehydrate this meat. Now we want to be dehydrating this meat at a relatively low temperature. Luckily, the weather is very cooperative today. I think it's a perfect day for smoking jerky, because normally you want to cook this in a smoker anywhere from say 140 to 175 degrees. You know, you can even go up close to 200, but anything over 200 you really risk cooking it too fast and not only drying it out but turning it rock hard. We want to do this nice and slow. And so what you're going to do here, I'm not going to have you watch the whole process, but once you get some pieces laid down on a paper towel like that, just take another paper towel and we're going to just push it on the top like this, and you can see all the moisture. And that's all we're going to do. The second part here is you want to get some cooking spray. I just got some generic cooking spray here, and we want to spray it on these racks. This is going to make it much easier to remove the jerky because it is common for this to stick. So we're going to spray these racks, and then we're just going to lay these pieces of jerky on these racks. And what we want to do when we lay them down on the racks is we want to make sure none of the pieces are touching, because we want to have good airflow all the way around. So it's this is kind of a fun part. It's a little time consuming, but I kind of look at it as doing a jigsaw puzzle in reverse. You're just kind of making all these pieces fit and trying to get as many pieces as you can. So let me continue doing this. We'll be back in a second when I got most of it done, and I'll show you how it'll look like. We'll be back in 1 second. So I'm all done laying out the jerky. I just wanted to give you guys a quick look. I had plenty of room on these racks, so I didn't have to crowd them too much. You know, I could obviously have fit a lot more but I'm spreading them out to allow enough air circulation to get around them. So I got 2 jerky racks, and then here I have a total of 4 skewers, and as you can see here, I just laced thick pieces of jerky, and I'm just going to put this rack in my smoker and let them hang like this. So there you go, guys. I'm going to go outside, fire up the smoker. I'll meet you outside. I'll show you how they look in the smoker. We'll be right back. One last thing I forgot to show you, I got my smoker warming up right now, is if you're looking for a little more heat, you can sprinkle some crushed red pepper flakes on there. If you just want it a little more zippy, some black peppercorns. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little bit of, just a light dusting of some pepper. This is not just black pepper, this is a variety of peppers, some white peppers in here too. The pepper melody. So I'll go ahead and put a light sprinkling of pepper on this just to give it a little bit different flavor. And one of these racks, I'm just going to do a light sprinkling of red pepper. Just one, because, you know, my son doesn't really like super hot stuff. And as much as I do like it, as I get older, my body can't handle it as well as I could when I was a little bit younger. So just a couple flakes like that. Perfect. So I'll meet you guys outside. We'll get them on the smoker. I'll show you the next step. Be right back. Alright, so here we are. My smoker's warmed up here. I got the 2 top racks here with the jerky laid flat. And then as you can see down here, I have 4 skewers with jerky hanging. Make sure you put some pans underneath here to catch any drippings, else you're going to make a huge mess. And the water pan I have on the very bottom, don't put any water in it. We want this to dehydrate, so we don't want any water. Some people put sand if they have a hard time maintaining a low temperature. We only want to be heating this up at a low temperature, anywhere from 140 to 165, and it should take 6 to 8 hours depending. So I really don't know. The other thing I need to tell you is be careful with how much smoke, because these are very thin pieces of meat and we don't want to over smoke them. So I'm going to only smoke 2 trays of smoke, one of apple and one of hickory. I put one in now initially, get some smoke on it, and I'm going to let that burn for around an hour, and then I'm going to put another little handful in one of the trays, and then after that, that's it. I also put a temperature gauge here so I can maintain the temperature and see where we're at. You want to open the vents on the bottom of your smoker. You want to open your top vent as much as possible, because the goal here is just to have air circulate and dry this meat out. We don't really want to cook it. So that's it. Now, if for some reason you have a hard time maintaining that temperature, don't be too concerned unless it starts creeping 200 and above. Every once in a while, you might want to come and kind of open the door and just kind of air it out, cool it down a little bit. And later on, when I'm done smoking, I might actually remove these trays on the bottom here for the wood chips to allow more airflow in there. So that's it. I could start to see a very light smoke coming, so I'm going to go ahead and close the door, and we will be back here. I'll come back in an hour or so, and we'll see how everything looks. We'll see you then. Alright, it's been 2.5 hours. It's right at 158, which is basically right where we want it. 158, 165, that's all good. Now, it stopped smoking. I've been on here checking a few times before. Now the top pieces look like they're just about done. Let's take a look. Some of these little smaller pieces, like say this piece here. Yeah. Well, you see when you bend it, it starts to get these white kind of spider web. But it's pretty thick. That one's going to need a little bit more time. But maybe a little thin piece like this might be. Yeah, this one looks like it's done. Let's see. Yeah, maybe a little bit longer. It's tearing pretty good. You know what, I'm just going to give it a tad longer. We're almost there. Some of these thicker pieces obviously are going to require a longer time. Let me grab an oven mitt here. Now these bottom pieces on the bottom here, let me see. Let me see if I can tilt the camera down a little bit so you guys can see this. These here, they're dry, but you can tell there's still a little bit of moisture in them. So it's definitely going to take longer for these pieces on the bottom. But you know, I'm going to give these like another half hour, and then I'm going to come and some of these smaller pieces that look like they're done, I'm going to take off. I just want to make sure they're completely dried out. So give it another half hour. I'll start pulling the smaller pieces off, and those other thicker pieces, particularly the ones hanging, I'm going to guess they're going to take probably at least a couple more hours, maybe 3. So we'll go from there. Alright, while we're waiting for that jerky to finish up cooking, time for a beer review. I love the name of this in the picture. It's New Belgium Brewing Company out of Fort Collins, Colorado. Voodoo Ranger IPA. I didn't know anything about this, but the cover caught my attention, the label there. So I bought some. So let's give it a shot. I have to admit, there was a little piece of jerky. It was very thin. It was dry. I cut it in 2 pieces. I gave a piece to my son. I had a piece. Whew! It is good. I'm looking forward to when some of those thicker pieces are done. Alright, let's see here. Well, for an IPA, it's pouring pretty light color. It's a golden color. Let's give it a smell. Okay, I smell hops. I smell citrus. Definitely hops. Overwhelming hops with a little bit of maybe orange tangerine. It smells good. As always, guys, cheers. I appreciate you watching my video. If you have any comments, suggestion, please leave comments below. I try to answer or respond to every response that I get. Cheers. Thanks again. Okay. A lot of fruit up front. Ooh, yeah, orange tangerine. And then a little dry finish with that hops in the background. But it's not overpowering. It's like a medium hops. It's got a little bit of a slight bitter finish. Oh, but it's good. It's the fruit kind of gives it a little, kind of mellows it out a little bit, the fruit flavor. It's very smooth. Boy, I really like this. So there you go, guys. Voodoo Ranger IPA. I would definitely recommend it. So like I said, I'm going to go out and pull some of those thinner pieces probably in the next 25-30 minutes and get those cooling on a rack. You want to let them cool for a good half hour, just at room temperature, before you try to package them up. Since I use the cure, you can just put them in a Ziploc bag, and you know, they can last in your refrigerator for probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Or if you vacuum pack them, they probably last longer than that. I know you can probably keep them outside at room temperature. I just like keeping stuff in the fridge. But boy, I can still taste the flavor. It tastes very good. I'm looking forward to this, and I appreciate you watching my video. I'm going to enjoy this beer. I'll come back maybe in an hour. We'll check out some of those bigger pieces, and then later on I'll have my son here. We'll try some pieces, and we'll see what he thinks on camera. Okay? Thanks again, guys. Cheers. I really appreciate it. We'll be back shortly. Alright, we're approaching hour number 5. I took the other pieces off, both the other racks, because they were sliced thinner, as you remember. They were cooked 3.5 to 4 hours. These took a little longer just because they are much thicker pieces, as you remember. As you can see here, some of these pieces are done. Like this is definitely done. I just want to make sure it's dried out. Like this piece here, I still see a little bit of moisture here. I think it's done because it's cured. But you know what? I'm just going to take this off. The big pieces like this, I'm just going to lay flat on the rack here. I'll give them another half hour, 40 minutes, just to really dry them out, because there's definitely moisture in a couple of these pieces. So I'll do that. We'll be back shortly. Alright, here we are. They're all done. Look at how beautiful. These big pieces on top, man, oh man, they are nice. I gotta show you. I'm gonna slice into one to show you, because they're still very meaty and beefy, and you can see they're pink inside. I mean, if you look at the color cue, these top ones here are the ones I sliced with the grain, as well as these over here. You can see those are the ones I had hanging. And then the ones down here in the bottom were against the grain. You can see they're much thinner and kind of, you know, a little bit different. So I'm going to do a taste comparison with my son, and we'll tell you what we think. If you're doing this in a dehydrator and you're not sure, you know, without the cure, I recommend the cure because I'm not stressing on it. I know this is done. But without the cure, you want to make sure the jerky reaches an internal temperature of 165. If you don't have a temperature thing, you can also put the jerky, take it off when you think it's done, and then put it in a pan and put it in the oven at 275 preheated for 10 minutes, and that should kill any germs, pathogens in the jerky. But look at some of these pieces, man. Ooh, they've still got a little bit of juice on them. They're very juicy even though they're completely dried out. Let me slice into one and I'll show you in a second. Alright, so here we are. I just want to show you this. This is a particular thick piece. You can see it's pretty thick. If I try to bend it here, you can see it's starting to crack. It's totally dried out. But what I want to show you is when I slice this here. This is probably the smallest piece of meat I sliced for my YouTube. But look at that. That's all completely cured. You see why it's pink? That's why it's cured. That's why all these pieces have a little bit of a pink tone to them, or tint to them. It's because the meat's fully cured. So it adds a different flavor, and it also guarantees that it's fully cooked. Look at this. Oh man. Alright, I'm going to try a piece right now. Wow. The flavor of the marinade, very good. I'm glad I didn't add any extra salt, because there's plenty of salt with the Worcestershire and the soy sauce. So this is the cut with the grain, and it is definitely more chewy, but it's also very tender, very delicious. You know what? Let me get my son out here, and we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. Tell you what we think. Alright guys, I just wanted to show you a side-by-side comparison. I cut these pieces up when I bring my son out. So the slice against the grain is supposed to be less chewy and more soft is this one, and that's the thin pieces. You can see it is rather soft. Supposed to be less chewy, more like your traditional jerky. This over here was sliced with the grain, more chewy and tough. Oh, look at it, man. Oh man, it's still so full of juice. So I just wanted to show you the two differences, and we'll try them and we'll tell you what we think. We'll be right back. All right, everyone. Here's my son Kyle. We're all alone tonight. Mom and little sister are out of town, so this is kind of a special treat. I just want to let you guys know, when you're done taking it out of the dehydrator or smoker, whatever it is, lay them out. Let them sit out for a couple hours, and they'll continue to cool down and dry out before you either put them in a Ziploc bag, or you can, you know, do a food saver vacuum sealed bag, which is going to last longer. If you use a cure, they're going to last a couple months, no problem. So whatever method you do. So here we go, Kyle. So this is the more traditional. It's less chewy and soft, sliced against the grain. So take a piece here. So this is supposed to be more soft and less chewy.
Yeah, it's really good.
By the way, how's the flavor?
Let me say it. It's like...
I think it's great. Not too salty, not too spicy.
Yeah.
So was that too chewy or no?
Yeah, not that chewy.
Okay. So now I want you to try this piece. This is sliced with the grain, more chewy and tough. Okay? It's definitely more chewy, but it's softer. And it almost tastes like, for a second you can think you're eating a steak.
Like the seasoning is kind of like...
But, no, wow. I don't know. Which one do you prefer?
To be honest, in my opinion, I prefer this one.
You do? With the grain. Yeah, it is in a weird way. It's just, it's so beefy. And these sticks here that I made, I mean, look at these things. Wow. You could just carry this, just eat this. I mean, these definitely have more weight to them. These are okay too. These pieces, you know, I got a couple real good ones, you know, the flat ones, like that. But these big sticks, sliced with the grain, wow.
The dog even wants some.
So what do you think, pal?
Really
Tom, what do
good.
you think? Do you prefer with the grain? I think I might have to agree, which I'm shocked.
I remember I went to class today, and I told a few people about this, and they were so jealous.
Yeah, I bet. Here, try a piece again against the grain. So guys, as always, I appreciate you watching. If you like the video, hit like. If you like my channel, subscribe. Hit the link in the top corner there. It's for my website, ericsmokingbarbecue.com. I always appreciate you guys' support. We'll see you next time. Say bye,
Bye.
pal. Good jerky. We'll see you around next time. Bye.